What's going on, everybody? I'm home from the National. Today is not going to be a full National review video. I am going to do that. I am looking forward to doing that. I'm going to share one main story from the National itself in this particular video, but I'm going to do more of a recap. See, I had several additions to the collection besides just the pickups that I showed in my card show videos. There was one other pretty big very big pickup as part of the whole thing. I had some really, really nice gifts that people brought me, other people who watch the channel, friends that I've made through the hobby, things like that. I'm going to share all of that stuff and a full reflection on the experience very soon. Hopefully tomorrow, maybe tomorrow afternoon. We'll see. I'm still kind of getting my feet under me. See, I was in San Diego for 5 days. I came home and then went Monday evening of last week. And then Tuesday evening, I took a red eye into Cleveland. I think the entire time in Cleveland was, I had like 4 nights, 3.5 nights. I think I slept a grand total of 10 hours. But I'll talk all about that and all about the experience in my full review recap. But I do have a little bit more in depth of one story that I'll share here. Now, the question that I asked 2 weeks ago now, because last week, Monday ended up being the monthly community pickups video, which was incredible, the amount of amazing cards. And I'll be honest with you, I'm so excited for the July pickups because so many people picked up massive cards that were at the National. And there were so many great deals online from the people who weren't. So I have very high hopes for that July video. But the question that I asked was, if you were going to the National and your budget was about $2,000, would you buy one $2,000 card? Would you buy 2 $1,000 cards? Would you buy 4 $500 cards? Or would you buy 20 $100 cards? And I just kind of posed that to everyone. And part of the reason I posed it is because I think a lot of us went to the National and we're going to go. And that's part of the planning process. So it's kind of on people's mind. And I was interested in some feedback just for my own decision making and what I was going to do. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the decisions that I made at the National and what my budget ended up being at the National. But again, the full report of all of that will come soon. Again, I'm hoping tomorrow. If it's not tomorrow, it'll be Thursday or Friday of this week. So I want to go ahead and take a look at your responses. Now, when I read over the responses, there were a lot of common responses. And one of the common things was, Greg, it doesn't really make sense to go to the National. Like, why even go? You're saying, oh yeah, I'm going to save because of sales tax, which is 10% in California. You're going to fly across the country from California to Cleveland. You're going to pay for a hotel. You're going to pay for a rental car or Ubers and eating and all that stuff to save 10% in sales tax. There were a lot, I would say 8 to 10 people said, I'm not going to the National because the expense of going to the National is crazy. And then the National prices aren't necessarily that good. Now, the National prices will be part of my wrap-up video for sure when I do that. But I want to first address that, and then I want to look at some of the other responses to the question itself. So first off, I don't go to the National to get good deals. That's not the reason I went. I didn't go to Strongsville to get good deals. I didn't go to the National to get good deals. See, and another question that I get, and I guess I'm going to talk about that now too, I wasn't really planning on it, is Strongsville or the National? If I were to go to one, which one should I go to? So let's just kind of talk about all that. First off, people fly from all over the world to go to the Louvre. They fly from all over the world to go to the New York museum of modern art, right? They fly from all over the world to see famous buildings and exhibits, and we'll go to the Smithsonian in Washington D.C. to see these amazing artifacts. Well, I could look at them online. I could look at them in a book. Why go there? Because you're there and you get to see them. See, that's part of what the National is it's a museum of some of the most amazing things you'll ever see. Now, frankly, some of the most amazing things I saw there were not even in cases. They were cards that came up, and I looked at Dave, I'm talking about you. Oh my gosh, I'm never going to forget that. But some of the heritage auction and golden auctions and the, all of them had some incredible stuff. So part of it is you're going there to see these museum artifacts in cards. That's part of it. But the biggest part of it for me is I would fly across the country to visit family. I would fly across the country to visit some of my best friends. If a friendship and family are important to you, you would travel to make time to spend with those people. That's really what the National is and was for me. It was about flying across the country. And trust me, I hate flying. I absolutely hate it. And again, I've mentioned a little bit before, I've got some health issues, and my health issues make it super hard for me to fly. And I hate it, and it's expensive. But I would absolutely do that to spend time with my family, my dad, and my friends, especially a handful of them that are like family to me. So if I didn't know anyone that was going to be there, and I was just there 100% for the cards, and I wasn't going to go look at some of the artifacts and the amazing cases of things, and I was just there to shop, I agree. It doesn't make financial sense to make the trip. But that's not why I make the trip. I made the trip to hang out with some of these guys are like brothers to me, and to see some of the most amazing cards in the world, because I plan on going to some of the most amazing museums in the world someday and looking at those items and seeing items in the Smithsonian and other battlegrounds and all sorts of stuff. So if you're going 100% for the cards and the relationships are not part of it, and the viewing of amazing cards within the hobby is not part of it, and you're just there to shop, I get it. But that's not what it is for me. If you look at Strongsville versus the National, which one would I recommend? Well, there's no doubt about it to me that if you want to see an insane offering of cards, if you want to have more cards to look at, if you want to have more options and more choices of what to buy, it's not even close. It's the National. The National has more cards. It has the volume of cards, the depth of the cards. I mean, it's insane how much is there. I mean, it's insane. The video doesn't capture how big that facility was. How long? I don't know how many miles I walked, but I walked a lot of miles looking at cards. The downside of the National is because it's so big, it's hard to find those friends that you're there to visit. So I was waking up early every morning, going to breakfast with friends. And the friends that I went with know what I'm talking about. And I was staying up late, hanging out at houses and restaurants and facilities, hanging out with friends. And then I would get back to my hotel at 11 o'clock, and I would start editing my videos. Most nights that I was there, I did not go to bed until 3 a.m. I didn't sleep on the plane, slept for 2 hours when I arrived on Wednesday in my hotel. Tuesday night, slept for 3 hours. Thursday night, I slept for 3 hours. Friday night before I flew home, on my birthday, Saturday was my birthday. I slept for 2 hours Friday night. I literally slept for like 10 hours in four nights. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's worth it because I wasn't there to sleep. I was there to spend time with these people who mattered to me. That is the reason to go to the National. What Strongsville allows is it's such a small facility. There's not anywhere near the level of depth and breadth of cards, but I get to see my friends more. So for me, the guy who went to the National, went to Cleveland twice in the last 5 months, is because the reason it's worth it is because I get to spend time with my friends. So what would I rather go to? If my friends, if my core tight group is going to Strongsville, I don't see myself missing that. But if my core group is going to the National, it's a lot, and I don't get to see them as much as I would in Strongsville. So if I had to pick the two, I'm going to pick my friends over the volume of cards. But if I'm going for the cards and oh my gosh, and the endless rows and cases, it's the National all day. So moving forward, people have said, will you come to the National next year? We'll see. Will I go to Strongsville next year? That is absolutely the plan, unless some of my closest friends decide they're not going. If I had to pick one, it's Strongsville. Because again, I've said this before, I love cards. You guys know I love cards. But it's more about the relationships that the cards have created than it is about the cards themselves. The cards are amazing. But I came home from Cleveland and I met some people that I have no doubt I will stay in contact with for a very long time, that I had never communicated with before, except for maybe some comments on the channel. And those of you that know who I'm talking about know who I'm talking about. If you think I'm talking about you, I'm talking about you. And that's the reason for the National. So will I go to the National? I'm honestly thinking I'll probably go to the National probably every other year. But as long as my core group is going to Strongsville, I will be in Strongsville. That said, the National was great, and I will talk more about that experience soon. But first, let's see how you responded to that question about what's the way to spend the money once you get there. I'm not going to the National, but if I were, I would buy the one $2,000 card, as that purchase will be something to remember for the rest of my life. Every time I saw that card in my collection, it would remind me of the great time I had at the National and how I picked it out of so many thousands of cards that it could have had. A truly memorable experience. That is priceless. The next one says, I bought my Grail 55 Clemente SGC4 at last year's National. Totally agree, the best place to buy the big card. And my good friend Orlando of A Collector's Dream says, get the Grail card if you can. And the final comment in support of that says, my answer is A, $2,000. Get that Grail card. You have great points about being able to hold the card and truly inspect it to make sure it is exactly what you want. Plus other good points. You save a little cash on tax and shipping. Funny, $2,000 is right around my National budget, and I am going for my Grail card, a 79 OPC Wayne Gretzky rookie. I thought I would never spend this money on one card, but feel a lot better about being able to hold and really inspect the card that I have always dreamed of having in my collection. That gives me way more peace of mind, putting big money, for me,
into one card rather than buying it on an online auction. Where's the fun in that for my biggest card purchase ever? If I don't find a copy of this card within my budget or liking, and I appeal, I'm going to go with Billy Ballgame's suggestion of looking for 4 of my second tier cards. What a dilemma. I can't wait for the happy hunting at my first national.
All right. A lot of people pressed for the big card, the $2,000 Grail card. That was the most popular answer. And I get it. It's like, you know, if you're going to go all the way across the country and you have so many options, then isn't that kind of the time? Looking the card over. I mean, when you're buying a $2,000 card and you don't even get to lay your own eyes on the physical item until it arrives, that's tough. Especially if it's a card that's not super rare. If it's super rare and just having one in any grade is cool, then it doesn't matter as much. But if you're somebody who, you know, is getting a card that there are some for sale right now on eBay, just not the right one, then yeah, it's pretty important to actually put your eyes on the card. And I totally get it. And it was so much fun at the National because so many people went for a big card, and seeing the excitement on their face and seeing the cards themselves was incredible. And I'm getting caught up. I'm behind on watching videos. I'm behind on responding to comments. I'm not ignoring any of it. I'm going to watch all of it. I'm going to read all of it. I'm going to respond to all of it. It's just going to take me some time to get caught up because I'm so far behind, because I literally haven't been home in a week. But that is so much fun. So going with the Grail card makes a lot of sense. And having lots of choices. I mean, people were like, one of the cards I was targeting. I made my target list of 10 cards. And I ranked them. And one of the highest ranked cards was a Ty Cobb T206. And I saw there were probably 35 of them in the room. None of them worked for me. Greg, are you crazy? Depends on who you ask, probably. But it just didn't work. So I then started looking for the next card. And as most of you know, if you watched the videos yet, I bought the 2 most expensive cards I've ever bought. Going into the National, the most I'd ever spent on a card was about $1,300 or so I had spent on my Bird Magic rookie card in a 7 and my Christy Mathewson T206 card in a 2. That was the most I had ever spent. About 2 cards for more than that. And so I went with sort of the bigger card. My budget ended up being about, well, my total budget ended up being a little over $5,000, $5,500 or so, maybe even more than that, maybe almost 6,000. But I only brought with me about 4,000, and you'll 4,400, something like that. And you'll see why I mean that in my review video, because there were some other things that showed up that I purchased with part of my National money. So yeah, I totally get that move. I totally get it. Let's see what one of the other very, very common responses was. Check this out.
So this comment says, buy the best Ernie Banks rookie card in a 4 or 5 that you can find. This comment says, if I were you, I would pick up the 1954 Ernie Banks rookie card. That way, each time you look at it for the rest of your life, you will remember that you picked it up at the National in Cleveland. If you pick up a bunch of cheaper cards, you're going to forget where you got them. As far as saving money at the National, I just got through picking up a Roberto Clemente rookie for just under $3,000. It is my 8th rookie Clemente. It is a lot cheaper to spend a few $100s on sales tax than it is to pay for hotel rooms and airline flights. That's just my few thoughts. My friend Brent says, take the cash, bite the bullet, buy the card. Oh, and he also texted me directly and said, Greg, I really think you should get the 1954 Ernie Banks Rookie Card. And another person says, buy the Banks Rookie. Come back excited. We know you. Get it. As for me, instead of paying for flights, room, food, my money will easily pay the eBay tax and get more.
So many people were like, Greg, get the Banks. You've wanted it for 30 years. And I have. I've mentioned it many, many times. I know it's the boy who cried wolf. It's everything. I know I've talked about it. Greg, there's so many of them. It wasn't that easy. When you build something up in your mind so big, it's hard to ever meet the expectations. But somehow, I found the one that met my expectations. And it was amazing, and I shared it a little bit in the video that I did from day one when I bought my Banks. I mean, I bought my Banks, and I've literally wanted the card for 30 years. And it was getting to the point where I'm like, I'm never going to be able to find one, because what I want is like a 7 or an 8. But I'll never afford a 7 or an 8. The most I could ever probably afford is a 5. So if you're actually buying the card and not buying the grade, what you want is you want one that looks like a 7 or an 8, but it's in a 5, because that's what my budget allows. Now, a quality 5 of an Ernie Banks is about a $2,000 card. Now, a really nice one might be a little bit more than that. So that would have been what it would have taken, about half of my budget for the National, in order to buy the really nice Banks. Unless the dealer who has the right one is your buddy, and he feels sorry for you and gives you an insane deal. So when I came home yesterday, and my wife was there and my daughters were there, and they were asking me about the trip, and they were asking me about what I bought. And so I start telling them the story, and I tell them about the Ernie Banks card and why I always wanted the Ernie Banks card, what it was about that card, about the way that he just jumps off of that kind of bone-colored background, and the blue and the red in his hat, and the old Cubs logo up in the corner. And how much I love Ernie Banks for just the ambassador that he was, and how happy he was, and his smile, and his youthful look. And I'm explaining this to them, and they're being polite and acting like they care. And I'm telling them, yeah, I've wanted it forever. And then I'm telling them about how I walk up to Ash's table, and I'm with my dad, and I'm with one of my closest friends, not just in the hobby, but in the world. Yes, Darren, you're one of my favorite people in the world. And Ash hands us this stack of cards, and he says, hey, I just bought these about an hour ago. I don't know if you guys would be interested in any of these, but I want you to take a look. They hadn't even been priced yet. Hadn't even been priced. And Ash goes, if you guys want to take a look. So he shows them to us. I mean, Ash is a freaking awesome guy. Like, genuinely my friend. No doubt about it. An awesome guy. So Darren and I are looking, and Darren's flipping through the cards, and he goes, that's a pretty nice Banks. I immediately look at the grade to see if it would be in my price range. And I see that it's a 5. If it was a 6, I'm out. It's not going to happen. But it was a 5. Now, for that card, for whatever reason, I wanted that card in a PSA holder. Why would I want it in a PSA holder? And again, it's just the stars aligned perfectly. It had to be a 5 or lower, and it was a 5. I really wanted a PSA holder. Why? Well, for the last 25 years, I was just kind of PSA only. SGC wasn't really an option. So when I envisioned that card, when I thought about that card, I thought about that card and envisioned that card in a PSA holder. Greg, you're buying the holder? I don't know. No, I would have bought it if it was PSA or SGC. I would have still bought it. But just the one that I had envisioned was a PSA holder one in a 5. And there's also the red in the flip, kind of pulls out the red in the cap. And I think it looks better than the black, which kind of clashes with the blue. I don't know. I know, I'm crazy. So then I'm looking at it, and my dad is just like, that's really nice. And Darren's like, that's really nice. And I'm sitting there going like, I know. And I've gotten all into the eye appeal thing. I've gotten way more into the centering thing. It doesn't have to be centered. It doesn't have to be perfectly centered. It has to have good eye appeal. And it had like perfect centering, like perfect center. That card doesn't come perfectly centered. Like I literally, here's to prove how good it's centered. I showed it to my buddy Dylan, Double D, and he goes, that's the best example of this card I've ever seen. That's what Dylan said. He agreed that it was really, it's perfectly centered. And I didn't want a total dog corner. They had to be at least decent corners, and they were good corners. They're like 7 corners. The centering is perfect. The corners are like 7s. And I'm like, this seems too good to be true. And so I'm just looking for what's wrong with it. What am I missing? Flipping it over, looking. And then my buddy Mookie comes up. Mookie's one of my favorite people on the planet. And I'm just like, man, like the vision, like the dream is that you find the card from a dealer that you like and trust. And you're with people that are important to you. And I got 2 of my closest friends in the hobby, and Mookie and Darren. I got my dad standing there. And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, I think I got to do it. I'm like, this is kind of what I envisioned. This was the dream. This was everything. This was it. And it had to be a 5. And Ash said, Ash, what do you want for it? And he says, is it for you? And I go, yeah. And Darren goes, this is his Grail card. He's been looking for this card for 30 years. This is the card he wants. And Ash he kind of smiles and he goes, for you, 1,600. That way it'll make the decision easy. That's what he says. He goes, there's no, this should not be a difficult decision. He basically, I don't know what he paid for it, but I'm guessing he paid. He's basically sent it to me at cost just because I think he feels sorry for me. And I'm like, man, this is nuts. This is nuts. And I literally in my mind, I go, the only thing that this is missing is if Theo wasn't here, he's going to be like, if Theo's not here, he's going to be like, oh, I wish I was there. This is literally what's turning into my mind. And then right then, Theo walks up. Another one of my good friends in the hobby. And I'm like, okay, I got my dad, I got Darren, I got Mookie, I got Theo. It's the right grade. It's the right dealer. It's an insanely great price. And the card is perfectly centered with amazing eye appeal. So I'm telling this to my daughters and my wife. And I know probably a lot of people have just hit that tapping on their screen, fast forward, to go to the next thing because, I know I'm going on and on and on. But I'm just, hey, I am who I am at this point. I understand if you don't like listening to me, but so anyway. So I'm telling this to my wife and daughters, And I just go, it was really, really special. And then I just lose it. I just lose it. And I'm like, my daughters, my daughters must think I'm insane that I'm sobbing in front of them because I bought a baseball card. But again, I've said this before. It's not really about the cards. It's about the relationships that the cards create. That's really what it's about. And it wasn't that I came home with the right card. It was that I came home with the right card, with the right people with me, and I bought it from the right man. And it's a memory, it's a core memory that I will never lose. That is why I lost it.
This one says, 2 $1,000 cards is also a valid option. The choice would come down to what I could find that I want, then go from there once I found the first I can't pass on this one card. This comment says, I never went to the National with preconceived ideas what I was going to buy unless I was putting a set together. My desire to put a 1955 set, which I still own, only came together because I happened to pick up Hall of Famer rookie cards at different nationals that allowed me to complete it. If I was going to this national, I would probably pick up 4 $500 cards rather than blow it on one card. I have never had one Grail card in mind and love to shop for something that grabs me. A $500 card would easily satisfy me and add some great cards to my collection. This comment says, great video, Greg. I always thought of my Grail card as one that I am trying to work towards. Currently, the 59 Gibby rookie. Maybe Grail is really the card that if you had unlimited funds you would buy. I would consider doing this. If I had $2,000 to spend, I would try to get the Gibby rookie for around $500, then go for 5 $200 cards. That leaves me with $500. With that, I could purchase 10 more $50 cards and have a nice take-home. I would have 16 cards to add to my collection, including my current big card. I would definitely have a hard time buying one card. Greg, great question because my budget is $2,500 and I'm going for one day. I've done a combination so far. I took $650 and bought 3 rookie cards on eBay: Frank Robinson, Carl Yastrzemski, and Ernie Banks. Now the rest, I am going to first get an autograph of Archie Manning on a photo of him and I from my very first Ohio State football game. Then I plan on getting a couple more rookie cards, maybe Killebrew, Stargell, and Kaline. The rest of the money, I plan on buying Topps base cards of Aaron, Banks, Koufax, Clemente, and Mays. No matter what I get, I can't wait to enjoy my first national. Thanks as always, Greg from Ohio.
So another popular response was sort of that BC option, that a couple of cards at $1,000 or 4 cards for $500, something like that. And I can attest to the fact that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, when I went to Strongsville, I bought a couple of cards for about $600. I bought a card for about $350, and I came home absolutely ecstatic. It was fantastic. I didn't buy one massive card. I bought a 33 Gowdy Hornsby. I bought my 49 Leaf Spawn. I bought my T206 Rue Marquard portrait card. I bought a couple of, I bought a Sammy Baugh card. And it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. And so there's no doubt about it. Like that BC range of a handful of cards for $400 or $500. A $400 or $500 card is a big card. At least it is for me. And to be able to pick up a few of those that's very special as well. Now, when I think back on Strongsville, the Strongsville trip will always be the trip I got my Warren Spawn. The National will always be the trip I got my Ernie Banks. Even though I spent $1,000 more on a card the next day after I bought the Banks. But I don't know. I totally get it. When I go back to Strongsville, I go back to the National. Like, there's no wrong answer in any of this. But I think if you had $2,000 and you bought 5 $400 cards or 4 $500 cards, I could see how you could come home just absolutely thrilled. 100%.
Great question here, and went through this process prior to attending Strongsville this spring. My answer would be 10 cards at $200. I have a variety of very nice cards, makes my collecting hobby fun. I came home from Strongsville with my first T206, a 66 Mantle, a 69 Joe Namath, and a Maze decal insert in great condition. That equals fun. But my strategy may be different in the future. You never know. Give me the 10 smaller cards for now over the big one. I like quantity over quality until I can afford the big Grail card that I want, if that ever happens. I would do C or D. I like looking at lots of cards as opposed to just one. Thanks, Greg. Have fun at the National.
All right. I had a lot of friends at the National that came up because, the first question, hey, how's it going? Then it's, what have you picked up? And it's so much fun to show whoever what you bought. And so I had friends that bought one huge card or a couple of really big cards or several medium-sized cards or some smaller cards. And again, the whole thing is relative, right? One person's budget might look at what I bought as smaller cards, and somebody else might go, oh, I'll never spend that much on a card. Like, I get that. I get it. But it was cool because a lot of people had a stack of 8 to 10 to 12 different things that they picked up. And other people, pretty much their whole budget went to like one card. And that's cool too. So I get all of it. And I'm certainly not trying to tell anybody out there that there's one right way and there's one wrong way. It's just a menu. And the beauty of cards is you can always change your mind. You don't have to be stuck. If you decide, these other cards, these multiple $50 cards that I bought, I've decided I don't want to do that. I want to have that big card. You can liquidate them. My buddy Orlando, a collector's dream, he sold off quite a bit of stuff to buy his incredible 52 Topps mantle. Like, that's totally makes sense. It's having an asset. And is it a lot of little assets or is it one big asset, right? Is all your money tied up in this or is it tied up in that and that and that and that? And you can change your mind. Now, does it cost money to change your mind? Sure. When you sell something, you lose a little bit of it. But it is okay to do it. And I've used the analogy many times about houses. You don't want to be moving all the time because every time you move, you've got to pay the realtor 5 or 6%. So every time 5 or 6% is gone, and then you have to pay for a long time to make up that 5 or 6% that you just didn't give away, gave away. So it's okay to change your mind, but you just have to know there's a little bit of a loss. John 3D80's kid, he's changed his mind on what he's collecting, what his focus is a couple of times in the last 3 years. And that's okay. So if you ever decide, man, I should have done this instead, it's okay to just rip off the Band-Aid and go a different route. Don't hold back from doing that. Go with what makes you happy. Don't think, oh, I might lose a little bit on this card or whatever. It's okay. It's okay. So when I was there at the National, one of the things that was really crazy to me is that there was some of everything, right? There's the dealer that's just Japanese baseball cards. They're phenomenal. There were dealers that were just non-sport cards. Phenomenal. Obviously modern, obviously some pre-war, obviously 56. But then there were dealers that were like hockey dealers and football dealers and basketball dealers and political card dealers and one of the cool things, and it's cool but it's also dangerous, is when you see some of that stuff, you're like, oh wow, I think I might want that. And I don't want to give away what some of my friends bought because they're making videos and I want them to be able to share. But I have some friends that bought some cards and some things that I was like, that's pretty cool. And some of it were non-sport cards and non-sport cards that I really like. So my question for this coming week is, outside of what it is that you are currently collecting, if you were to expand into a different category, if you were to go into a category you've not dipped your toe into yet, where would you go? My buddy Mike Petty, I say to him all the time, bro, you will love football cards. You need to start collecting vintage football. He goes, I'm afraid to start. Because if I start, I think it's going to be all bad because I'm going to go bananas. He's probably right. So my question again, if you were to expand to a new category and take that for whatever you want, non-sport, a different category within the sport, international card, whatever it is, where would you go next? Where would you go next and why would you go to that? That's what I'm curious about for next week. Let me know your thoughts. Appreciate you guys letting me ramble. But man, great trip. I'll share more details, more of the pickups, more of the additions, more of the gifts, more of the experiences very soon.